Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Gene's Reviews from a regular dude here in my car. If you're already subscribed, thank you very much. If you're not subscribed yet, please think about doing so and tap that bell icon so that you can be notified every single time that I upload a new video. Also, if you stick around till the end, I have a joke at the end of every single video. I almost made that through the whole thing without stumbling my words, but I didn't quite make it. Okay, today we're going to do one again from Most Amazing Top 10. This is called Mysterious Disappearances Linked to Parallel Realities. Okay, I believe in this stuff. I think there's parallel universes and stuff like that, so let me know what you think in the comments down below. Now let's check this out.
There are all kinds of really inexplicable missing persons cases, but on this list, we have ones that seem to point to something even stranger going on, even entire islands disappearing.
Friedrich Valentich was an experienced pilot living in Australia. On the morning of October 21st, 1978, he embarked on a solo flight from Moorabbin, Victoria, Australia to a nearby island, Kings Island. In total, the flight should have taken no more than an hour, and the weather was pretty pristine, so it should have been a fairly easy flight as well. No clouds, little wind, beautiful day. The journey started out pretty mundane, but partway through, Friedrich radioed into air traffic control, and he informed the men on the ground that there was an aircraft tailing him, to which ground control replied, "There are no other aircrafts in this area." But Friedrich insisted that someone or something was hot on his trail. A little while later, he informed them that the aircraft was no longer behind him, but actually hovering above his plane, and a short while after that, he radioed in for the very last time to say something along the lines of, "It's on top of me again, and it's not an aircraft." His final message was followed by 17 seconds of radio silence, and then some horrible metallic screeching noise.
Sounds like
After
a
that,
UFO to
nothing.
me.
Friedrich Valentich was never heard from again, and
I'm
neither
pretty
his
sure
remains nor the remains of his aircraft were
pronounced
ever
Frederick.
found. While many people attribute Friedrich's disappearance to the presence of a UFO, many others believe that it's entirely possible he was sucked into a wormhole that carried him into a different version of reality,
could be.
where he made it to Kings Island and all is well.
In 1978, Stephen Kubacki, a 23-year-old student from Michigan, went skiing in the countryside. He was a seasoned skier, so it was unusual when he went missing. His friends reported him missing after he failed to return, and search teams were sent out, but there was just no sign of him. After more than a year, 15 months exactly, he was suddenly found, though, 700 miles away in Pennsylvania without any memory of where he'd been. What's really strange is that Stephen Kubacki couldn't remember anything about his disappearance. He was found in a place he had never been before, and
Sounds
he had
like
no
the
idea
Travis
how he got
Walton
there.
thing.
He was also in surprisingly good health despite being missing for over a year. Kubacki described a sense of having been in a different world or place, but he couldn't provide any clear details at the time. His story was incredibly strange because he had no visible signs of injury or distress, and the weather conditions had been relatively mild during his absence. So just what the hell happened?
This next story comes from Reddit, and it goes like this. One night, my friends, we'll call them E, C, W, and K, were at the gas station. K got out of the car and went inside to buy some stuff. About 7 minutes later, E and I are sitting in the front seat, and we see K walk out and come right up to the car. But as soon as he's about to open the door, he disappears into thin air. We had a clear view of the store entrance and everything else around us. I didn't think that E saw the same thing I did until E turned to me very confused, asking if K just came out of the store or am I crazy? And I said, "No, you're not crazy. I saw him come out too." My other two friends, W and C, said they weren't even paying attention. But about 5 minutes later, K came out of the store, and as soon as K got in the car, I asked him if he had already come out of the store, but he said no, he'd been in there the entire time. So basically, this guy's saying that his friend disappeared and then reappeared moments later in a different location. I'm not sure if this is a case of cross realities or a time glitch, but either way, super spooky.
It is
The
creepy.
case of Brian Schaefer has to be one of the strangest missing persons cases in recent history, or even all of history, really, seeing as there's so much video evidence and yet no definitive answers. A medical student from Ohio named Brian Schaefer disappeared in 2006 while at a bar called the Ugly Tuna Saloona with friends near his campus. Security footage from the bar showed Brian chatting with a couple of women outside just before 2 a.m. before entering the building. And that's the last piece of security footage there is of him. Brian Schaefer was never seen again. The footage clearly shows him walking into the bar. There's just no footage of him leaving it, even though the cameras should have captured his exit. This has led to all sorts of theories, of course. Some people think he might have been abducted or that he found a way out that wasn't captured by the cameras, but in that case, where would he have gone?
Yeah.
Had he possibly been involved in a crime of some sort or secret activity that led to his disappearance? Well, possibly, but there's never been any solid evidence of that. It's like he just slipped into a wormhole.
That's really weird
This
how the
next
camera
story
wouldn't
also
catch him
comes from
leaving.
Reddit, and it goes as follows. About 6 months ago, I'm sitting in the living room of our tri-level house, and I see my roommate walk up from the basement, turn the corner, and walk down the hallway to his bedroom. Haas, our American bulldog, is following him. I needed to tell my roommate something, and so I got up and followed Haas, who was following my roommate down the hallway. Me and the dog get to my roommate's bedroom. I turn the corner into his room, and he isn't in there. And the dog is looking up at me with the same confused look on his face. At this moment, I turn around to go back downstairs, and here comes my roommate, walking up from the basement in the exact
Doppelganger.
same manner, fashion, whatever that I had just witnessed. And then Haas, the dog, starts barking at him. The user goes on to say that normally he would attribute this kind of crazy thing to sleep deprivation, but that the dog's reaction just made it feel so real. Like the other Reddit story, it's up for debate as to whether or not this is a time glitch or a crossover of realities. Also, like the other Reddit story, super weird.
It's something
I would
creepy because
probably
dogs
be
notice,
questioning my
or
reality
animals
a little
in
bit if
general,
this happened to me.
notice things
Bermeja
like that.
Island. This is a very curious little oddity. So there's supposed to be a small island located in the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula called Bermeja. It used to be on maps dating back to the 16th century, but it seems to have vanished. The island first shows up on maps from the late 1500s. It's
Okay.
also mentioned in all
Right at the
sorts
top.
of historical records.
Bermeja.
For a long time, Bermeja Island was considered to be a legitimate place. It was even used to help define maritime borders in the Gulf of Mexico. But by the late 1800s, it seemed as if the island had completely disappeared. And in 2009, a Mexican government search team confirmed that no island matching Bermeja's description could be found in the Gulf of Mexico. So, what happened? Was it destroyed or submerged after a big storm? Possibly.
Could it be
Or
sunk? Yeah.
is there a stranger possibility? Could the island somehow have been shifted to another dimension? Or maybe this is a very extreme case of a Mandela effect, where in one reality the island was there, but in this current one, it never was.
That could
James
be.
Tedford, 56, and his wife Pearl Tedford were living in Vermont at the end of World War II. After his service, James returned home to learn that his wife had completely vanished, seemingly into thin air. He questioned neighbors, friends, family, and even got the police involved, but no one could figure out where she had gone. The only information they were able to gather was that she was last seen walking to the Ameco store when she suddenly vanished. After spending a few years looking for his wife, defeated and lonely,
That
James
sucks.
checked himself into a soldier's home. Just 2 years after that, he vanished. He had boarded a bus from Vermont back to the soldier's home, but before he ever made it to his destination, he disappeared. All 14 passengers who boarded the bus recall seeing him, but he was gone by the time they reached their stop. Only his luggage remained, neatly tucked away into the luggage rack. No other stops had been made along the way, so it didn't make any sense that James had just disappeared. Unless, of course, he somehow slipped into another
I
dimension.
think that's
Hopefully one where
extraterrestrial
he and his wife
abduction
lived happily
type
ever
stuff
after.
there.
In 1975,
Travis
Travis
Walton.
Walton, a logger from Arizona, and his crew had finished up a long day in the Apache Sykes National Forest.
This
As
one's
Walton
really
and his crew
interesting.
were driving home, they suddenly spotted something. a bright red light in the distance, hovering over the trees. They decided to drive closer to investigate, and what they saw was something none of them had ever seen before. They were completely awestruck. Hovering above them was some sort of aircraft, and it was definitely not a helicopter. Then, in the midst of all this shock and confusion, Walton decided to get out of the car to get a closer look. His friends yelled at him to get back in the truck, but he continued walking closer, and that's when he claimed
probably
he was
hypnotized.
struck by a beam of light from the mysterious aircraft and lifted off the ground. And that's when the rest of the crew, understandably panicked, sped off. But as they drove further and further away, they knew they couldn't just leave him there. They rushed back, but Walton was now nowhere to be found. Of course, the police were contacted, and the search for him became a major story, but no trace of Walton was discovered for 5 days.
And then he
Then
turned up
suddenly,
at a phone
he
booth.
reappeared, confused and disoriented, but he was there and alive. Walton's explanation for where he'd been was pretty harrowing. He said he'd been taken inside a UFO, where he saw beings he described as aliens who attempted to experiment on him before he fought them off and escaped deeper into whatever this strange craft was. And then he woke up and was back in town. His account was detailed, and he, as well as the rest of the crew, passed polygraph tests. This incident became one of the most famous
They must
and
not have liked
well-documented
him.
alien
Didn't want
abduction
him.
cases in history. It was even turned into a book
He was
and
too much
film,
trouble.
Fire in the Sky.
On December 17th
Yes.
of
Excellent
1976,
movie,
Harold
too.
Holt, the Prime Minister of Australia, vanished after going for a swim in the waters of Cheviot Beach near Melbourne. Holt was 59 at the time, but he was incredibly fit and in pretty peak athletic condition for his age. Yet to this day, no sign of the Prime Minister has ever been found. No remains, no clothes, no note telling anyone where he was going,
Well, the
no
ocean's
sign of
pretty
struggle,
big.
nothing. He simply vanished without warning. While there are some theories that suggest he fell victim to riptides, like I said, his remains have never been found. Other theories claim that he might have been taken by the Soviet Union or even a Chinese submarine because of his support for the Vietnam War, or even that he was abducted by aliens. But of course, there is one more theory. It's the theory, it's the reason why you clicked on this video, and that theory is that perhaps he slipped into an alternate reality where he spent the rest of his days living a simple life on the Australian countryside. One
I
can
think
only
he
hope.
drowned.
The Sauter family case is one that's been
The ocean's
baffling
so
people
big,
for
you couldn't-
decades. On Christmas Eve in
Not
1945,
surprising
the
they
Sauter
wouldn't find
family's
it.
home in Fayetteville, West Virginia, caught fire. The parents, George and Jenny Sauter, and 4 of their sons and daughters managed to escape, but 5 others, Maurice, Martha, Louise, Jenny, and Betty, were presumed to have been trapped inside the house, never making it out. But the thing is, no remains were ever found, which led to
Okay,
all
that's
sorts of
bizarre.
theories, starting with the Sauters themselves, who weren't convinced that they died in the fire. And while this could, of course, just have been a case of 2 grieving parents not wanting to accept the truth, there are some interesting details about this case. What the parents believed was that the missing youngsters had been kidnapped and that the fire was a cover-up. There were some suspicious details, like the phone lines having been cut, and witnesses reporting seeing a strange man near the house shortly before the fire. And over the years, the Sauters started receiving mysterious tips and supposed sightings of their sons and daughters. They even had a private investigator look into the case, but unfortunately, no solid evidence was ever found. With all that said, you
Wow.
guys please don't go anywhere. Catch us in the very next video.
Cheers.
Well, that was pretty cool. That last one, I have no idea. And as far as the thing with Travis Walton, they did make a movie about that, and I highly recommend it. It's called Fire in the Sky. I'm sure you can find it out there. It's an awesome movie. It stars an actor named D.B. Sweeney. And it also has the guy who played T-1000 in Terminator 2. Robert Patrick, I think was his name, or something like that. Yeah, Robert Patrick. I'm pretty sure that's it. But it's a damn good movie. If you get a chance, check it out. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments down below. Now it's time for a joke. What do you call a chicken with lettuce in his eye? Chicken sees a salad.